Hi, my name is Eric Kimberling, CEO and founder of Third Stage Consulting, wanting to welcome you to our video, How Business Process Management Fits into Digital Transformation. So this video is intended to answer that age-old question of when do we start defining our future state business processes? Do we do it now? Do we wait until we choose a software vendor? Do we wait until we're ready to start implementation or software design? And this video is intended to give you a quick overview on what we found to be a good technology agnostic best practice for this age-old question. So some of the questions we often get regarding business processes and how it fits into digital transformation is, when should we start process mapping? Do we need to worry about our current state, or do we just focus on the future state? Can we define our future state business processes without our future technology? And doesn't the software dictate our business processes? This is a question we hear quite often, especially from software vendors who sell this proposition that software will or should drive your business processes. And then finally, how much time should we spend on our business processes? That's another common question that often comes up during digital transformation engagements of all sorts. So when we look at business process management and where it fits into your overall digital strategy and your roadmap, you can see here this is a framework we use for an overarching digital strategy that encompasses 6 different major work streams, one of which is business process management, but you also have organizational change, your enterprise application strategy, solution architecture, your BI and analytics, and then project quality assurance. So we're going to focus here today on that business process management component as far as where, when, and how we should be defining our current state business processes and requirements, as well as when and how we should be defining our future state business processes. And by the way, coming out of this work stream, or toward the tail end of this work stream, should come a number of business process improvements that you would deploy throughout your organization, either as part of your digital transformation or ERP project, or in parallel with or separately from your ERP project. We work with a number of different clients who have opted to deploy business process improvements in advance of any new technology, with the idea that there's a certain amount of low-hanging fruit out there that you can get just by tweaking your existing business processes, so that you're not enforcing too big of a change all at once on your employees. So if we unpack that work stream within the digital strategy framework a little bit more here, you can see that business process management has a number of different things that need to happen, and we'll look at these 7 boxes here in a bit more detail, starting on the kind of middle left there where it says define business goals. That's the first thing we want to do, is define what are our business objectives, what are the value drivers, what are our core competencies, and how do we assess alignment with those core competencies. And that's the first thing we want to do, because we don't want to be mapping business processes in the context of how things are today necessarily, and we don't want to haphazardly define our business processes. So we want to make sure we're looking at what are our business goals and objectives, and how can business processes enable those goals and objectives. Next, we identify pain points, and that's the second box from the left that you see. And this is where we look at areas of inefficiency and how we can improve our processes, and really building a foundation for what those new business processes will look like. And so when we're identifying pain points, we typically will look to a certain degree at the current state business processes. Now, we're not digesting or dissecting the business processes in excruciating detail, but we're trying to understand at a high level how do business processes and how does information flow throughout the organization right now? What are the pain points associated with that? And then that allows us to move on to the next step, which is mapping those new processes. And typically the easy incremental changes are to identify those inefficiencies and pain points related with the current state. That's usually kind of a no-brainer in terms of process improvements that you'd want to make those processes more efficient. And then if we take it a step further, in addition to making incremental improvements, we're also looking for opportunities to better align our business processes with our overarching business strategy, goals, and objectives. So really this is a way for us to look at our new business processes and rethink how we do business today and how we could be doing business more so in the future. Now, one thing I'll say is, when we talk about how much do we map our business processes, how much time and effort and how deep do we get, there's 2 things I'll note. One is that not all processes are created equal. So there's going to be certain processes that you want to spend more time on because they're more strategic, they're more important to your future growth, they're less commodity-based processes. So things that are customer facing or unique to your industry, those are oftentimes areas that you're going to spend more time on, and your areas of secret sauce are going to be areas that you dive deeper into. So that's the first thing, is that we recognize that you'll want to spend some of your time, or more of your time, on some of the more strategic processes. Now, the second thing is, how deep do we go even in those areas where we know we want to go deep into the processes? Well, there's only so deep you can go without knowing what technology you've selected, or without having actually implemented technology yet. So what we always suggest is you want to go as deep as you can in your business processes and as detailed as you can get, without getting to the point where it's contingent on which software you use. So in other words, whether you're using a postmodern, fourth generation, or whatever you want to call it, ERP system, or whether you're using a pen and paper, these are the business processes that we as an organization need to deploy, because this is how we do business. This is why people buy from us. This is what our secret sauce is. And though once you get to that point where you're looking at your business processes from a technology agnostic way, that's about as deep as you want to go. You don't want to get down into workflows and transactional based processes, because that will absolutely be driven more by the software that you choose. But this will give you more of a blueprint that you can then deploy your digital transformation technology within the blueprint of these new business processes. And then once we've mapped those new business processes, moving to the right, the far right middle, you see right before the arrow anyway, you'll see the quantify benefits. So this is where we look at business improvements, soft and tangible benefits both. We look at the ability to scale with the existing team. So that's where we start to build a business case, and that leads into the bottom left, which gets us to the KPIs and metrics. So how are we going to measure benefits? What's the benefits realization plan, and how does that all tie into our analytics and requirements and BI strategy? And then once we've done all this, then we start to identify, how are people impacted by the change? What are the change impacts? So how are people affected? What are the specific changes to the specific stakeholders? And this will then, in turn, be a foundation for an OCM strategy and plan. And then finally, you want to define your risks. So what are the risks associated with the process improvements we've defined? What are the alternatives to mitigate the risk, and what's the risk mitigation plan? So those 7 steps you see on the left side of your screen in the blue boxes are the sub-steps that we would recommend as part of the business process management approach. Ideally, the sooner you can do this, even in advance of starting a digital transformation or ERP implementation, the better off you're going to be. You're actually going to save time and money during your implementation, because you'll have a clear vision and blueprint for how you want to deploy technology throughout your organization. Now, these business processes then provide inputs into your future state requirements to help you either pick a new system or technology, and or help you implement that technology within the parameters of your business blueprint. It allows you to define what your digital strategy and roadmap is going to be. It helps you define your organizational change management plan, and also helps you identify your business process improvement plan. So there's a lot of different benefits and inputs that the outputs here provide to you. So when we look at business process management, there's a couple different ways we can do it, and every client's different, and we try to align the approach that makes the most sense for them. The first is that we take a clean slate approach, and we start with, let's focus on you, the client, let's focus on your operations, walk through the steps of your process, and really understand what the differentiators are, where the pain points are, and what the opportunities are for improvement. The second approach is that we take a starting point. We've got something to start with. A great example is APQC. Provides some resources that are very inexpensive that can enable you to facilitate some of the process work, or at least have a starting point for defining what your future state business processes might be. Now, it's not as easy as just pulling the process maps from APQC, but it is something that we use in our consulting methodology. But it's something that you all have access to as well, if you'd like to see it as a starting point or as a reference point. So what that does is it provides you a starting point that people can throw darts at. Now, the downside of that approach is that it can be quicker on one hand, but it typically doesn't create as much buy-in. People feel like immediately like there's a mismatch with the way your operations might work. On the other hand, if you take a clean slate approach, people feel more bought into that approach oftentimes, but it can take longer. So that's the kind of the pro and con of those two approaches. But regardless of how you go about that or what the right approach is for you, we typically will take facilitated and interactive sessions with internal experts within the company. Either way, you're going to have the same outputs and deliverables. And either way, it's advised that you leverage outside technology agnostic expertise that can help you rethink your processes and leverage the internal knowledge you have of your processes and pain points, and leverage some of the best practices we've seen from other organizations. So that covers business process management at a high level. I also have written a number of blogs, one of which is linked below right below here in the description of this video. And so I encourage you to read that blog in more detail, and encourage any comments you might have as well. For more about Third Stage Consulting, which is an independent digital transformation consulting firm, you can go to thirdstage-consulting.com, and you can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube, email, or the old school way of cell phone as well. So hope you're all having a great day. I hope this video was helpful to you, and look forward to speaking with you soon. Take care.